A rare pink diamond is to go under the hammer in Geneva.
The fancy vivid pink pear-shaped diamond weighs 18.18 carats and is said to go up for up to $35 million. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council has confirmed the death of 8 people due to Typhoon Karding. As the Department of Agriculture slated to 160 million pesos, the initial damage and losses incurred by the typhoon in agricultural sector. Retired Supreme Court Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin has assumed the position of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s Executive Secretary. Iglesia ni Cristo extends care for humanity to Typhoon Karding victims in Quezon City. Hurricane Ian has strengthened to Category 3 as it is expected to landfall soon in Cuba. And Japan honors former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in a controversial state funeral.
Initial assessment of the Department of Agriculture show that Typhoon Karding has caused 160 million pesos in damage and losses to the agricultural sector. The DA said the initial assessment covers 16,229 hectares of land in the Cordillera Administrative Region, Ilocos Region, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon. The DA said this translates to a volume production loss of 5,866 metric tons of commodities such as rice, corn, and high-value crops affecting 740 farmers. The agency is expecting more damages and losses in areas affected by Karding in the coming days. The DA also assured assistance will be provided to affected farmers and fisherfolk, including 133,240 bags of rice seeds, 5,729 bags of corn seeds, and 4,911 kilograms of assorted vegetable seeds. It also has drugs and biologics for livestock and poultry, fingerlings, and assistance through the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. The DA said it can also tap the Survival and Recovery or SURE program of the Agricultural Credit Policy Council and 500 million worth of quick response funds for the rehabilitation of affected areas.
The death toll from Typhoon Karding has risen to 9 with 3 additional fatalities, according to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC. Disaster management officials confirmed that the 2 new deaths were from Zambales, 1 from the Quezon province and 1 from Bataan. The agency also clarified that these figures are still for verification. The latest death toll already includes 5 rescuers from Bulacan, though authorities are still determining the cause of their death. Meanwhile, 3 fishermen were reportedly missing in Mercedes, Camarines Norte, and the RRMC said that, and this is also for verification. The agency also reported that Karding affected a total of 60,817 individuals or 16,476 families from 948 barangays in the National Capital Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, and Bicol. Of this, 46,008 individuals or 12,352 families were still staying in 976 evacuation centers. It said the typhoon left at least 3 million pesos worth of damage in Mimaropa alone. Elsewhere, the Department of Education estimates that it needs at least 112 million pesos to repair schools damaged due to Typhoon Karding. In its preliminary assessment, DepEd said Carding damaged at least 20 schools in 6 regions: the Cordillera Administrative Region, Metro Manila, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, and Bicol Region. At least 327 schools were used as evacuation centers, 259 of which are still serving as temporary shelters for displaced residents. DepEd did not give other details about the reported figures. Meanwhile, as of 1 p.m. today, the National Electrification Administration reported that 80% of the affected municipalities had full restoration of power.
A family of lawmakers is proposing the creation of the Magna Carta for Public Disaster Risk Reduction Management Workers at the House of Representatives. Under House Bill number 4490, introduced by Mother and Sons Representatives Lani Mercado Revilla, Ramon Jolo Revilla, and Brian Revilla, they stressed the need to recognize and create a law for PDRRMW. The bill aims to promote the protection and welfare as well as provide benefits and compensation to members of PDRRMW who serve the people during times of calamities. Once passed, PDRRMW would be guaranteed a security of tenure and a salary. PDRRMW would also be given benefits and compensation like hazard pay, transportation, communications, subsistence, laundry, and quarterly allowance. Under the bill, PDRRMW would also be given free medical, mental, and psychosocial examinations and an insurance coverage.
After the onslaught of Typhoon Carding, which included Metro Manila, the Iglesia ni Cristo immediately distributed food packages to typhoon victims in Quezon City through its Lingap sa Mamamayan. Food packages were distributed to residents affected by the serious flooding and the severe weather brought by the super typhoon. Erlo Bringas has the details.
Iglesia ni Cristo Executive Minister Brother Eduardo V. Manalo has immediately responded to the needs of the recent typhoon victims through the Iglesia ni Cristo's outreach program, Lingap sa Mamamayan. Residents of Quezon City affected by heavy rains and serious flooding receive food packages from the church. These includes Barangay Payatas, Bagong Silangan, and Barangay Commonwealth. According to Iglesia ni Cristo, Quezon City District Supervising Minister Brother Virgilio del Rosario, the Iglesia ni Cristo immediately acted on the needs of the residents in the city affected by the floodings.
Ang totoo po, hindi pa dumarating ang kalamidad ay inalam na ng mga kinatawan ng atin pong tagapamahalang pangkalahatan doon sa posibilidad na maaaring mangyari dito sa nakaraang malakas na bagyong Carding. Kaagad-agad po ay nagpadala ng lingap o tulong, wala hong pinipili. Kahit po hindi natin kakapatid sa iglesia, hindi natin kapananampalataya, sino man ang nangangailangan ng tulong ay atin pong dinadamayan.
The distribution of the Lingap goodie bags was safe and orderly as safe and health protocols were strictly observed. Residents who benefited from the activity expressed their gratitude amid life's challenges and the rising prices of commodities.
Malaking tulong po ito sa aming pamilya po, sa malaki pong tulong ng pagkain namin lahat. Marami rin po salamat sa Iglesia ni Cristo.
Malaki po para sa amin na mahihirap. Yan, kaya maraming salamat.
Napakalaking tulong po para sa akin ang nakakuha po ko nito. At maraming salamat din po kay kapatid na Edward V. Manalo. Ay napakalaki pong tulong para sa amin. Siya po lamang talaga ang tumutulong para sa mga mahihirap. Unang-una, ang Iglesia ni Cristo.
Iglesia ni Cristo will continue its effort to help the needy with the series of Lingap sa Mamamayan in different areas, especially those affected by the Typhoon Carding.
Ang totoo, hindi lamang tayo ngayon tumutulong pagka dumarating ang ganitong bagyo, maging sa iba't ibang uri ng kalamidad. Tuloy-tuloy po ang gagawing ito ng Iglesia ni Cristo sa pangunguna ng ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan para dumamay, para tumulong sa ating kapwa na nangangailangan.
This is Arlo Ringas reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Experts have warned that the daily COVID-19 cases may reach 2,000 by October. During the Laging Handa Forum, infectious disease expert Dr. Ronjean Solante says the expected increase is due to the easing of health protocols and optional use of face masks in outdoor settings, as well as the public's complacency.
At alam natin kung bakit tumaas itong mga kaso na ito, na taas na rin ang mobility sa mga tao at saka marami na talagang nagluluwag sa mga health protocol na medyo kampante na sila, hindi nagsusuot ng mga face mask at uma-attend ng mga several of these gatherings.
Another reason for the uptick in COVID-19 cases is the presence in the country of various variants of the virus. However, Solante noted that even though the weekly positivity rate is increasing in the National Capital Region, the hospital utilization rate is still low. Meanwhile, DOH officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergeire added that what mattered more was that severe and critical cases would remain low and hospital admissions would not get full.
Na-admit lang ay yung mga severe, yung mga elderly population, no? Yung may mga edad na 65 pataas at yung mga hindi pa masyadong nabakunahan, although meron ding nabakunahan na at yung may mga multiple comorbidities. But ang nakikita namin dito, COVID, Omicron subvariant or variant of concern, BA.5, can cause only mild symptoms generally in most of the healthy and general population. So, kung titingnan natin proportion sa mga nag-positive, mataas pa rin ang nagpa-positive doon sa mga general population. So expected yan na hindi mapupuno ang mga hospital because it can only cause mild disease or mild type of COVID sa mga general population and younger population.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has certified as an urgent bill the proposed 2023 national budget amounting to 5.268 trillion pesos. The House of Representatives plan to conclude the plenary debate and sponsorship of the proposed appropriations by September 28. Vic Sumintak has the story.
The House of Representatives has completed deliberating 85% of the proposed 2023 national budget of the Marcos administration, amounting to 5.268 trillion pesos. House Speaker Martin Romualdez said they would finish the discussion on the proposed funding on September 28, Wednesday, and would pass it on the third and final reading. This follows President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s letter to the House leadership certifying the proposed budget as urgent. Once approved in the third and final reading, the proposed budget will then be sent to the Senate for their version. Any misunderstanding or conflict with the two versions on the national budget bill will be thrashed out at the Bicameral Conference Committee. The final version of the budget will be submitted to President Marcos for signature, which the administration hopes to be enacted before the end of December. Vic Sumintak for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has a new executive secretary. Retired Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin today took his oath as Marcos Jr.'s executive secretary, replacing Victor Rodriguez, who will now hold the position of the Presidential Chief of Staff. More details on this from Moira and Sina.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has appointed retired Supreme Court Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin as his new executive secretary. Photo release from the office of the president showed the president presiding over the oath-taking of Bersamin, who replaced Executive Secretary Victor Rodriguez. Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles said E.S. Bersamin immediately assumed office by attending today's cabinet meeting. Rodriguez resigned from his post early this month following controversies over the Batch Sugar Order No. 4, authorizing the importation of 300,000 metric tons of sugar. Malacanang said the order was illegal and authorized by President Marcos, who sits as the chairperson of the Sugar Regulatory Board and the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture. Rodriguez will continue serving the administration as the Presidential Chief of Staff. Prior to his new designation, Bersamin was appointed chairperson of GSIS by former President Rodrigo Duterte. Bersamin graduated his law degree from the University of the East in 1973 and the same year placed 9th on the bar exams. He also served as presiding judge of the Quezon City Regional Trial Court, Branch 96 from 1986 and was a Court of Appeals Justice prior to being appointed to the Supreme Court by former President Gloria Arroyo. Bersamin was the country's Chief Justice from November 2018 until his retirement on October 2019. Moira Encina, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Commission on Appointment has approved the ad interim appointment of Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella III. Here's Mean Corvera for the details.
The powerful Commission on Appointment has confirmed the ad interim appointment of Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella III. Estrella's appointment was unopposed as a courtesy to him as a former lawmaker and a former member of the CA. In his confirmation hearing, Estrella vowed to prevent conversion of agricultural and irrigated land as mandated by President Ferdinand Marcos himself. But if the land conversion would create more jobs and livelihood opportunities to Filipinos, the DAR chief said he will not be a hinder. For now, Estrella said the government is imposing a moratorium in distributing land owned by state colleges and universities. Those land, he said, may be useful to students taking agriculture courses for their actual practice in farming, fisheries, and livestock. This land may also be distributed to students who would complete their 4-year course in agriculture to encourage them to farm.
Kasi po, ito'y ginagamit ng mga ating mga estudyante para sa mga experimental nila, para sa mga actual practice nila in agriculture as well as in forestry and even in fisheries and livestock. Kaya po medyo nag-slow down kami o hininto muna namin unless meron din po naman na mga generous na state universities and colleges who are willing to share some of their lands, equipped with modern and scientific farming methods for greater production po. At ang gusto na nating Pangulo, i-include po ang mga OFWs po natin na nagkaroon ng experience sa farming abroad at gusto na pong permanenteng manirahan dito sa ating bansa.
Aside from Estrella, the CA has also approved the promotion of 63 officials of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Mean Corvera reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Today, the Philippine peso closes at a fresh all-time low of 58 pesos and 99 centavos against the US dollar. The local currency surpassed last Friday's record of 58 pesos and 5 centavos versus the dollar. This is the 11th time the peso plunged to a record low against the US dollar. Meanwhile, the Office of the Press Secretary said President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. is closely monitoring the value of the Philippine peso against the US dollar. It also cited that the inflation rate is not due to any local factors, but it is really about the exchange rate. According to other reports, since the start of 2022, the peso has already depreciated by a total of 7 pesos and 0.501 centavos, or 14.7%, from 50 pesos and 0.999 centavos versus the dollar.
Later in the news, Vice President Sara Duterte paid a courtesy call to Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio. Russian President Vladimir Putin grants full Russian citizenship to U.S. whistleblower Snowden. And Pyongyang sounds warning as U.S. and South Korea begin naval drills. Find out more about these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Naging background dancer ni Vilma
Yung mga
Santos.
gumaganon.
Anong secret?
Number one secret is Scarlett. I want to be with her. So I kept praying, Lord, please give me time.
Tissue, please. Pwede kumuyain ngayon yan?
Yeah.
Ang dami na ngayong mga artista ang nakakapasok sa legislatura.
That's part of democracy, hindi ba?
Raymond, I love the dog. So you're in love.
Yes.
What do you call this dish?
It's an Indian dish.
Gisa-gisa pag may time. Lahat ng yan at maraming iba pa, watch out for it here on Corina Interview.
Magandang araw po sa inyo lahat. Siyempre, open na kami for business and friendship. At kami lagi sa TV tuwing tanghali po para sa inyo.
Bukas din ang ating multi-store 24/7.
Kaya relax lang po kayo dyan sa bahay. Kami na ang bahala sa inyo.
Tipid ka na sa pamasahe, sa pagpunta sa mall, at mas safe pa dahil kailangan lang mabahas.
Hindi ko rin siya tinipid. Ang gusto kasi namin, chocolate in every bite.
Dito sa Shopping All the Way.
With Jojo,
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's get together sa Net 25.
Ganun mo ba kagusto si Mr. O? Higit pa sa papa mo?
Madilim ang pusong puno ng inggit at selos.
Lolo!
Hindi mapapasayo ang Yang G Group kahit na kailan. Yun, Siwal. Hindi mo na makikita ang anak mo kahit kailan.
At maraming inosente ang madatamay.
Patulugin mo si Teyang hanggang sa matapos yung shareholders meeting bukas. Siguruhin mo na hindi siya makakadalo sa meeting bukas. Kaya sumunod ka na lang kung ayaw mo mabaliw ang anak mong babae.
A place in the sun.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's get together sa Net 25.
Araw-araw may bagong kaalaman. Dahil sa Tony Knows, everybody knows! Your Kuya Tony Petgaba na hindi naubusan ng tips. Siyempre, from DIY to life hacks, sagot ko na yan. Saan ka pa? Let's all play together. Let's have fun together. Tara na, sumali at makigulo sa aming kada challenge. Sa kada umaga, kompleto na ang inyong umaga.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Vice President Sara Duterte paid a courtesy call to Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo. This is Duterte's first overseas trip as Vice President, and she is also the first cabinet-level dignitary of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s administration to visit Japan. Moira Encina has the details.
Vice President Sara Duterte has attended the state funeral for former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe just Tuesday, September 27. But before attending the funeral, she paid a courtesy call to Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio on Monday. During their meeting, Prime Minister Kishida assured VP Sara of his country's commitment to strengthen the relationship between Japan and the Philippines under the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The Japanese leader also thanked Duterte for attending the state funeral. Kishida also expressed gratitude for the Senate and the House of Representatives' passage of resolution expressing the institution's sympathy and condolences on the death of Abe. The Prime Minister also informed Vice President of his country's decision to extend aid and support to the Philippines in the sector of agriculture, peace process, and scholarship for Filipinos. The Vice President, on the other hand, thanked Japan for its cooperation in the infrastructure development in the Philippines and upholding peace in Mindanao. Moira Encina, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Japanese foreign dignitaries paid tribute to assassinated former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at a state funeral on Tuesday that drew both mourners and protesters to central Tokyo. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida described the former leader as a person of courage, listing his achievements, including efforts to strengthen Japan's diplomatic ties. "I feel heartbreaking grief," Kishida said in front of the world leaders. A 19-gun salute was also sounded in honor of the slain politician. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and world leaders, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Australian Premier Anthony Albanese, were among those in attendance. Japan's Emperor and Empress are not attending as neutral national figures, but Crown Prince Akishino and his wife offered flowers at the end of the service. Abe was Japan's longest-serving prime minister and one of the country's most recognizable political figures, known for cultivating international alliances and his Abenomics economic strategy. He resigned in 2020 over recurring health problems, but remained a key political voice. He was assassinated on July 8 by a lone gunman who believed he had ties with the Unification Church. Though the shooting sent shockwaves throughout the country and the international scene, the decision to give him a state funeral has provoked opposition, with around 60% of Japanese against the event in recent polls. Those who oppose the state funeral march near the tents before a larger demonstration in front of the parliament. However, Kishida's government hoped for the solemnity of the event, which was attended by an estimated 4,300 people, including 7 foreign invitees, would drown out the controversy.
Edward Snowden is one of the 75 foreign nationals granted Russian citizenship by the decree published on an official government website. Snowden has been living in Russia since 2013 to escape prosecution in the United States after leaking classified documents detailing government surveillance programs. The documents disclosed massive domestic and international surveillance operations carried out by the National Security Agency. The U.S. Appeals Court found the program Snowden had exposed was unlawful, and that the U.S. intelligence leaders who publicly defended it were not telling the truth, according to other news sources. For many years, U.S. authorities wanted Snowden to be returned to the U.S. to face a criminal trial on espionage charges. But the whistleblower said that he was willing to return to the U.S. if he is guaranteed a fair trial. Meanwhile, State Department spokesperson Ned Price stated that the United States is not aware of any change in Edward Snowden's American citizenship status.
Has not changed. Mr. Snowden should return to the United States, where he should face justice as any other American citizen would. Perhaps the only thing that has changed is that as a result of his Russian citizenship, apparently now he may well be conscripted to fight in Russia's war in Ukraine.
Snowden's wife will be applying for a Russian passport, according to his lawyer. The move comes at a time when relations between Washington and Moscow are at historic lows over the conflict in Ukraine.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has renewed his call for the global abolishment of nuclear weapons. Guterres says the era of nuclear blackmail must end, referring to Russia's threat to use them in the Ukraine war.
Ladies and gentlemen, we come together. The idea that any country could fight and win a nuclear war is deranged. Any use of a nuclear weapon would incite a humanitarian Armageddon. We need to step back. Now, decades after the fall of the Berlin Wall,
Guterres adds, unless nuclear weapons are eliminated, there can be no peace, no trust, and no sustainable future.
South Korea and the United States began their first combined naval exercise near the peninsula in 5 years on Monday, leading to a warning by Pyongyang that the allies risked triggering war. South Korea's hawkish President Yoon Suk-yeol, who took office in May, has vowed to beef up joint military drills with the United States after years of failed diplomacy with North Korea under his predecessor.
지금 미국은 이 시각에도
조선반도 주변에서 매우 심각한 우려를 자아내는 합동 군사 연습을 벌려놓으려 하고 있으며 이는 명백히 조선반도 정세를 전쟁 적경으로 몰아가는 도화선에 불을 붙이는 매우 위험천만한 행위입니다.
Washington and Seoul have long carried out joint exercises, which they insist are purely defensive. Pyongyang, however, sees them as rehearsals for an invasion. For his part, North Korea's Ambassador Kim Song said on the UN that this instance shows that the UN Security Council has lost its competence and authority to act on behalf of its other member states in maintaining international peace and security.
During a NATO exercise in Skid, Latvia, the United States deploys soldiers and 2 HIMARS rocket launchers. The same launchers are currently used by the Ukrainian army to resist the invasion of the Russian army. The exercises happened against a background of increasing wariness in Latvia over the unpredictability of its eastern neighbor.
One of the advantages the HIMARS has is its mobility. It's a wheeled vehicle, so it's much faster. It can go to a lot more places than a tracked vehicle. It's also mobile in that it can get on an aircraft and fly to austere airfields to extend its range. The rockets, which are 6 to a pod, can fire up to 70 kilometers, while the guided missile can fire up to 270 kilometers.
Additionally, Latvian Army Lieutenant Colonel Viktoras Karekis said they are working on a scenario in which they will not harm themselves and they can call on their allies.
Ties between the United States and India, the world's 2 largest democracies, including military ties, are growing stronger, according to Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III. Austin hosted a meeting at the Pentagon with Indian External Affairs Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar and discussed ways to deepen their bilateral defense cooperation. The Pentagon also said the officials reaffirmed their commitment to working together as steadfast partners to advance the United States and India's shared vision for a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. The Indian military is becoming more interoperable with its U.S. partners. It has purchased Apache helicopters, Seahawk helicopters, and has expressed interest in other U.S. defense capabilities. The main test to that vision, at least as Washington sees it, is China, which has triggered territorial disputes with various nations in the South China Sea. Austin said regional security is especially important right now due to China's increasing bellicosity, especially regarding Taiwan.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the United States is looking forward to working with Italy's new government after a far-right victory that would encourage respect for human rights. In a tweet, Blinken writes, "We are eager to work with Italy's government on our shared goals, supporting a free and independent Ukraine, respecting human rights, and building a sustainable economic future. Italy is a vital ally, strong democracy, and valued partner." Giorgia Meloni is to become Italy's first leader since Benito Mussolini with fascist roots after a campaign in which she denounced immigration and voiced skepticism about the European Union. Next up, Vietnam braces for Super Typhoon Noru. Hurricane Ian strengthens to Category 3. And Toronto Paramedic Services celebrates Public Service Week. Please stay tuned. We will be back with more global news.
Tito Abo! Tito!
Miss ko kayong darating ko. Ako hindi manimiss. Siyempre naman po, Sir Ben. Miss kita.
Hindi mababaliwala yung mga efforts nyo. Anligoto kayo sa first day ng reopening namin. Diba?
Dali.
Ano pa kasi ginagawa mo dito?
Sinusuportahan ko yung girlfriend ko. Pinatulang ka ni Juliet? Oo. Anong meron sa'yo? Hello.
Santos. Let's talk about love. I can't imagine having it all and then suddenly being given that news.
This is the first time I'm going to discuss it, and only because I trust you.
Anong secret?
Number one secret is Scarlett. I want to be with her. Please give me time.
Tissue please, tissue break, tissue break.
Kung kayo po ay may sumbong o reklamo sa inyong lugar na gusto po ninyong paaksyonan, mga katiwalian at insidente na dapat ibunyag, isend nyo po ang mga nakunang larawan o video sa aming pong email, responde@net25.com, Facebook page at Net25TV at Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan FB page. Pwede po kayo mag-text sa 0915-415-1035. Gawin po nating viral ang inyong pong sumbong na may katapat na aksyon at responde. Mapapanood nyo kami sa mga sumusunod na mga channels. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
And we welcome you back to Mata ng Agila International. Vietnam urged more people to evacuate as an intensifying Typhoon Noru barreled towards the Southeast Asian nation. According to the country's meteorological agency, Noru has a wind speed reaching 183 kilometers per hour, and it is expected to make landfall in Vietnam on Wednesday before it weakens and moves to Thailand. The typhoon shut 9 of Vietnam's airports, causing travel disruption, while also forcing thousands of people to evacuate their homes. In a statement, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh said that with not much left and with the intensifying storm, they must be stronger and faster in response to the current situation, emphasizing the importance of evacuation as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the government placed around 270,000 military personnel on standby. The hardest hit areas were expected to be the central province of Quang Ngai, home to the Dung Quat oil refinery, and Quang Nam, home to the World Heritage Site of Hoi An. More than 133,000 residents of Quang Nam province evacuated their houses, which they fortified with bricks and sandbags. Additionally, authorities are now in haste to secure the country's coffee-growing areas north of the Central Highlands region.
Hurricane Ian has strengthened into a major Category 3 storm, according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center in its advisory Tuesday. The NHC said Ian becomes a major hurricane as the storm's winds blasted at 185 kilometers per hour, and it was expected to soon make landfall over western Cuba. This is what the storm looks like from the International Space Station. Cuban authorities have issued a cyclone alert and told people in the most affected areas to prepare to evacuate, with the government supplying fresh water and medical services. The storm is expected to pass over Cuba late Monday or early Tuesday, advancing at the rate of 22 kilometers an hour with packing winds of up to 130 kilometers an hour. Meanwhile, in Florida, the city of Tampa is under a hurricane watch. Governor Ron DeSantis says the storm will bring heavy rain, flash flooding, and tornado activity along Florida's Gulf Coast. People are advised to stock up on food, water, medicine, and fuel as DeSantis warns of possible power outages. Authorities in several communities have begun distributing sandbags to help residents protect their homes from flooding.
Heavy rain in Honduras has forced more than 12,000 people out of their homes. The rainy season in the Central American country has been worsened by Hurricane Ian, which is turning its way to land in the Caribbean. Rain from the storm is causing rivers to overflow and roads have been washed out and bridges damaged. More than 1,600 communities are cut off from the rest of the country. Since the weekend, the Red Cross and firefighters have been kept busy rescuing people from flooded homes. They are using boats to take them to shelters or the homes of relatives. As well as damage to homes, crops have been destroyed, further adding to food insecurity in this nation of more than 9 million people.
Recognizing the dedication of the thousands of people working in paramedic services there, the City of Toronto in Canada holds a special award ceremony for outstanding life-saving individuals. Joshua Santillana reports.
This week, Toronto Paramedic Services celebrates their Toronto Public Service Week, recognizing outstanding staff and members and celebrating the dedication and hard work of their 40,000 members. In a special ceremony on Tuesday, Chief Paul Raftis, head of the Toronto Paramedic Services, presented awards to 13 deserving individuals who served and provided outstanding life-saving care this past year. The Toronto Paramedic Services is the largest municipal paramedic services in Canada. On top of providing an around-the-clock pre-hospital emergency and non-emergency care and transportation to the residents of Toronto, they also offer public education programs that teach people how to properly use emergency medical resources when needed. Chief Paul Raptis expresses his gratitude for their members and staff who go above and beyond to serve the community, and thus making a difference in the lives of others. Joshua Santillana, Matan ang Agila International, Toronto, Ontario. Trusted, connected, on point.
4 people are dead after a passenger boat sank in the Galapagos Islands. The victims included an American, a Colombian citizen, and 2 Ecuadorians. One survivor says none of the passengers had life jackets or any protection. He says when they initially boarded the vessel, the crew had trouble starting the boat's 3 engines, which eventually they could only keep one of them going. The boat flooded and sank. An investigation is underway. The Galapagos Islands are about 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador.
2 leaks have been identified on the Nord Stream 1 Russia to Europe gas pipeline in the Baltic Sea, according to Scandinavian authorities. Take a look. The Nord Stream 1 leaks were first spotted Monday evening, an hour after a drop in pressure was reported in its twin pipeline, according to the Swedish Maritime Administration. One of the leaks on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline occurred in the Danish economic zone and the other in the Swedish economic zone. Similar to the leak on Nord Stream 2, the incidents are subject to safety measures. As a result of the leaks, navigational warnings have also been issued for a distance of 5 nautical miles and a flight height of 1,000 meters. However, Danish Climate and Energy Minister Dan Jorgensen clarified in a statement that the incidents on the 2 pipelines have no impact on the supply to Denmark.
Peru declared a state of emergency for 90 days in the Amazon area affected by an oil spill where some 2,500 indigenous people live, the Environment Ministry said. The geographical area impacted in the communities of Coninico and Urarinas has been declared an environmental emergency, said a statement from the ministry. The decision comes 9 days after a rupture in the Norperuano pipeline dumped some 2,500 barrels of crude oil into the Coninico River in the northeastern Loreto region, affecting 6 indigenous communities. The ministry said the spill occurred in an area where artisanal fishing is taking place. The measure seeks to protect the health of the inhabitants of that area and the conservation of the natural resources that the Amazon territory houses. The prosecutor's office this week also launched an investigation to confirm the causes of the environmental incident.
Thousands of Mexicans march demanding justice on the 8th anniversary of the disappearance of 43 students. Investigators have branded the atrocity a state crime involving the military and other institutions. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador urges protesters to rally peacefully in memory of the victims of a tragedy that shocked the nation and prompted international indignation. Relatives, students, and other demonstrators advanced through the heart of Mexico City, chanting slogans such as, "Alive, they took them. Alive, we want them." Some carry signs reading, "It was the army." One parent whose child also went missing demands that the military be investigated and punished. Lopez Obrador's appeal comes after several dozen members of the security forces were injured on Friday in clashes with protesters hurling rocks and homemade explosive devices at a Mexican military base.
A gunman who went on a shooting rampage at a school in central Russia has killed 17 people and wounded another 24. 11 of the victims were children. Another 22 children were wounded. The attack occurred in a city about 960 kilometers east of Moscow. Authorities say the 34-year-old gunman had graduated from the school. Witnesses say the man was wearing a black T-shirt that had a Nazi symbol. He committed suicide after the attack. There is no indication of what his motive was. Authorities say the gunman was registered as a patient at a psychiatric hospital. Russian President Vladimir Putin denounced the shooting as an inhuman terrorist attack.
Coming right up, planet Jupiter makes its closest approach to Earth since 1963. Economists wait and see after British pound reaches historic low.
You are not
And Avatar re-release takes box office by storm, rakes in $30.5 million globally.
You're one of them.
Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back after this short break.
Na balita, haharapin.
Very important sa COMELEC, dapat kami po ay transparent.
Punto por punto, sasagutin.
Hindi po kami pwedeng lalamya-lamya sa paghahanda. Ay paano po kung aasa-asa kami marireceive? Kung paano po magkatuluyan? Kulang kami sa ballot boxes, kulang kami sa ballpen, kulang kami sa indelible ink.
Tututukan ni Atty. Sal Panelo.
In a scale of 1 to 10, what is the probability of cheating in this kind of election?
Kasama si COMELEC Chairman George Garcia sa Counterpoint tuwing Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
Pwede po bang mag-ano ko dyan?
Hanap niyo ba ay latest news? May rollback! Palitan po ng piso? Pampang-good vibes. Sabi ni Pati mo, mag-jacket ka. So akin na yung perlas mo. Sure. Basta balik mo. Maiinit na diskusyonan. Nasa kustodiyan na niya eh. Nakapurantong ka lang ano. Lahat yan, sagot namin mga suki. Kaya samahan niyo kami Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Dito lang sa paborito niyong morning habit. Ano sa palagay niyo?
A NASA spaceship hit an asteroid 7 million miles away in order to divert its orbit, succeeding in a historic test of humans' ability to prevent a celestial object from devastating life on Earth. The double asteroid redirection test impactor struck its target, the space rock Dimorphos, at 7:14 Eastern Time, 10 months after blasting off from California on its pioneering mission. An hour after NASA's spaceship struck with Dimorphos, a never-before-seen moonlet appeared as a speck of light. Moreover, an egg-like shape and craggy, boulder-dotted surface finally came into clear view in the last few minutes as DART raced toward it at roughly 14,500 miles per hour. NASA's scientists and engineers celebrated the moment when the screen froze a bit, showing the final image, which indicated that the signal had been lost and the impact has taken place. NASA assured U.S. that the pair of asteroids pose no threat to our planet, but it emphasizes the importance of carrying out the experiment before an actual need is discovered. Moreover, the director of NASA's Planetary Science Division, Lori Glaze, expressed her satisfaction as we now have the potential and capability to protect ourselves from a dangerous, hazardous asteroid impact.
Jupiter has made its closest approach to Earth in 59 years, according to NASA. The gas giant is in opposition, meaning Earth is directly between it and the Sun. There will be about 367 million miles between Earth and Jupiter, the space agency said. NASA originally said Jupiter would be making its closest approach to Earth in 70 years, but corrected its statement after discovering the error, a spokesperson said. With a pair of binoculars or a telescope in a clearer sky, stargazers can be able to spot the largest planet in the sky. Star watchers may also be able to see 3 or 4 of Jupiter's moons, including Europa, NASA said.
Being the new head of state, Buckingham Palace revealed King Charles III's new royal cipher, the monogram of his initials that will feature on government buildings, state documents, and new post boxes. His late mother, Queen Elizabeth II cipher was E2R, standing for Elizabeth II Regina, or Queen in Latin. Meanwhile, Charles's will be C3R for Charles III Rex, or King in Latin, with the C intertwined with the R, the 3 within the R, and the crown above both letters featuring a Scottish crown. The newly made cipher was designed by the College of Arms, and it will be used throughout the royal household and by government departments. Moreover, an immediate change in the national anthem to God Save the King, the shift of call to senior lawyers as King Counsel, the appearance of the King's head on the banknotes and coins, and the wording inside passports will be gradually brought in both Britain and its 14 other countries where he is also head of state.
Economists are waiting to see how the Bank of England and the UK government will react after the British pound hit a record low against the US dollar Monday. The pound dropped dramatically following the government's mini-budget announcement on Friday, which featured a raft of measures, including large tax cuts. This huge tax-cutting budget has been heavily criticized. Owanda's senior market analyst Craig Erlam says it has wounded people's pride.
Sure, it is a shot at our pride, and I think that's always how people are going to perceive it, especially, like say, at a time when we were meant to be breaking free and going out on our own and showing the world who we are and what we can be. It seems to have been a bit downhill from there in the sense of the markets, in the sense of the economy and the pound. But again, there's always plenty of time to turn things around, and over time, I have no doubt that will happen. But in the short term, at least, we may just have to accept that things are not looking good in the short term, but could improve, and I'm sure will improve in the longer term.
Runners from around the world took part in the Berlin Marathon this past weekend, with Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge beating his own men's world record. The 27-year-old double Olympic champion from Kenya finished the course in 2 hours, 1 minute and 9 seconds. That's 30 seconds better than his best time, set 4 years ago. More than 45,000 people from 150 countries ran the 42-kilometer course. Tens of thousands of spectators lined the streets to cheer them on. It's the first time the race has been held since the pandemic began.
The epic science fiction movie Avatar is the highest grossing movie of all time and earned more than $2 billion at the global box office.
You are not in Kansas.
13 years after its initial release, the magical world of Pandora once again mesmerized cinema goers for another fun-filled sequel movie as it garnered $30.5 million for the first 3 days of its release. As per Forbes, the total global tally of $2.85 billion for Avatar still makes it as the biggest movie of all time. Avatar will portray the remastered version of the sci-fi movie as it includes a post-credit scene that features a sequence from the upcoming movie The Way of Water. Set in 2167, the movie will entail the journey of the Sully family, the troubles they surpassed, and the lengths they go to keep each other safe. The Fortune Pink, an exceptionally rare giant gemstone, will be auctioned off in Geneva in November, when it is expected to go for up to $35 million.
It's a fancy, vivid pink, pear-shaped diamond, weighing in an auspicious 18.18 carats. So the weight, in fact, brings luck to the new owner. It's a beautiful stone. It's extremely rare to find a pink diamond, vivid pink diamond of this size.
The diamond, which goes under the hammer for the first time on November 8, has been estimated at between $25 million and $35 million. Christie's highlighted that this was considered a lucky number in Asia, where it signifies definite prosperity, saying it expected the diamond to garner interest from collectors across the globe. That would look good on my outfit tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And now let's take a look back on some historical events that happened on this day, September 27. In 1865, General Miguel Malvar, a revolutionary general, was born in Santo Tomas, Batangas. Malvar played an instrumental role during the Philippine Revolution against Spain and the subsequent Philippine-American War. In 1940, Germany, Italy, and Japan signed the Tripartite Pact. This pact formalized the alliance between the three countries, which subsequently were referred to as the Axis powers. And in 2015, the total lunar eclipse wowed sky gazers around the world with a dazzling show as the full perigee moon crossed into Earth's shadow and took on a blood red hue that gave way to its nickname, the Blood Moon.
And to help you go through this week, here's a quote from Henry David Thoreau, an American philosopher. Success usually comes to those who are too busy looking for it.
In short, success comes to those who actually work for it.
Because it takes hard work in order for us to earn success.
It does. You cannot just dream it and wait for it to happen for you. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Yalago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.